was a nice day. We were enjoying the walk. Sunny, bright, blue skies, sounds of birds. I saw a big thing in the water. And I kept saying, is that a teddy bear? It just looked wrong. So I picked up a stick thinking, well, I'll just, poke it. We thought, yeah, that's a person. Potentially, I thought it was a female.
Hello, where do you need the police?
I think I've seen what looks like a dead body.
Where?
We just came for a walk along the Darben Trail Creek. She's on her side. Looks like a woman to me, I don't know.
How far away from it are you?
About 5 metres.
And you don't think an ambulance is required?
No, this person's gone then.
The deceased was placed on a tarp. There appeared to be no obvious signs of any types of wounds or trauma. The deceased appeared to be female in her early 20s, wearing a sock on her left foot, no sock on her right foot. Tight-fitting dark jeans, dark-coloured singlet tucked in, a red bra, a pink dressing gown, a tiger pattern hair clip, a bling-type ring on her right ring finger, and an anklet on her left ankle.
When a body was found in Darben Creek in 2011, it barely made the local newspaper. People, even to this day, were saying, I lived in that area, I never heard of anyone being found in Darben Creek, let alone a female in her dressing gown.
It was deemed at this stage that the circumstances were not suspicious. I then updated the homicide squad in relation to the incident.
I don't believe that she took herself to the creek and harmed herself. I don't believe the idea that this was just a terrible accident.
Mr. Brake, if your plans have failed, ask yourself if there's a better plan waiting to be discovered.
The story does not add up. She was a 24-year-old girl, someone's daughter, sister, a human being. We just don't sweep things under the carpet.
God, help me be strong and let no one bring me down. Amen.
There is so much to her story and there are so many inconsistencies. But I think we are closer to getting those answers.
I had a very close relationship with Louisa. I was her brother, a friend as well, but I also acted like a father figure to her too. It would have been probably a couple of weeks. I'm trying to get a hold of her and she's not answering her phone. And all of a sudden I receive a phone call from her boyfriend saying that he doesn't know where Louisa is. And I found that quite odd because, I know that they're together usually all the time. So I went over to her house and found the house pretty much, just abandoned. You're thinking, the worst. I thought, well, it's best I go straight to the local police station and lodge a missing person file.
The police officer, instead of making a formal report, took down her details and assured Tass he'd follow it up on his end. He then finished his shift and took a couple of days off. 2 days later, he returned back to work, and one of his first jobs would have been to attend an unidentified female body found in the creek. At no point was the connection made between this body and the woman that was missing. I think it's appalling policing.
The flyer come on my door. We found a young girl at the creek. And
And when I read the description, I went, oh my God, that's Louisa. So I rang Crime Stoppers.
A family member who works for the police contacted me. He goes, yeah, they found Louisa in a creek. I go, what, dead? And he goes, yes. And that moment there will always be very painful. It just rocked me. It shook me to my core.
Γιατί έχω κάτσει μια μισή μήνα. Θα πάω στα χιόνια. Πολύ κρύο.
Louisa was a free spirit. Absolutely gorgeous girl. You could tell she had a beautiful big heart. She was very kind, extremely smart, and very mature, the way she carried herself.
She spoke Greek, she spoke Arabic, and she spoke English. She was courageous, she was talented. She could walk in a room and all eyes would just stare at her. She was a natural beauty, a glamour, with a gorgeous soul.
The police believe that, it was just a death that was caused by drowning. I just don't buy that story. She was a strong swimmer, she could swim. And I don't believe that my sister was suicidal. It had all the hallmarks of something suspicious. And for them not to have activated the homicide squad is just beyond me. Auntie Louisa. A lot of information here.
In the autopsy, there was nothing found in terms of the potential cause of death. And the toxicology report came back that the only detectable drug in her system was cannabis. So the police prepared a file for the coroner in terms of their own investigation, the results of the toxicology and the post-mortem, and their conclusion was that there was no suspicious circumstances. So ultimately the decision was that Louisa, her death was consistent with drowning. And this was accepted by the coroner.
The coroner has considered the request for an inquest and refused your application. We will send you a copy and close our file. I really didn't know what to do because the doors were just, closing on me. I thought the first point of call was to get an investigator, right, a private investigator. And I was referred to Julia Robson.
I'm a former police officer turned investigator. A lot of the time when there's going to be a protracted investigation, I have realised the power of the media, and I came to really enjoy making podcasts. And there was this email from Tass saying, can you please help me solve the case about my sister and find answers about what really happened to her. It was enough to get me interested in the story.
She's just beautiful.
Isn't she? Yeah. And that's me with my younger sisters. My parents separated when I was young, so we come from different fathers.
You share the same mother.
But the same mother, correct. We had a 30 years difference between us.
After looking at the information available, I realised that Louisa's story was just incredible. This Libya holiday, how is it presented to you?
Very innocently, it was a family thing.
After Tass's father and his mum broke up, Helen, Tass's mother, started a new relationship with a man from Libya. They had Louisa, they had Louisa's younger sister, and then the plan was that they were going to go back overseas and spend some time in Greece with the grandparents and then go to Libya and catch up with his side of the family. When they got there, Louisa's father turned around and said, no, we're staying here. You're not leaving. Now, this was against Louisa's mother's wishes.
My mother, we said to her, you can leave, but the girls are staying here. She was beside herself. I picked her up from the airport and she was just in hysterics. My girls, he kept my girls. And I was just reassuring her that, look, we'll get them back, it's okay. My mother tried to get the Australian Embassy involved and that really didn't help. No one was assisting. They lived in a derelict building here that you can see that was just abandoned. That's where he put them.
Bars on the windows.
And bars on the windows. This is the wall that was built purposely to separate the girls from him. Louisa would have spent probably 2 years in Libya. He left marks and he left immense scars. They weren't allowed to talk to boys. They weren't allowed to socialise. If they even tried to, they'd cop a beating.
Louisa's mother had to sell up everything she had and she went to Libya. Eventually, she was able to get in contact with the right people who said, we will help you leave this place.
Heavies as such, like gangsters, right, but with good hearts. People that were willing to try and assist them to get them out of the country.
As the story goes, they left Libya in cars where they were hidden and there were men with guns. I mean, that kind of extraordinary story. So this would have been after Louisa would have been back from Libya. You can see she's just enjoying herself like any other normal Australian teenager would be doing. There she is. Speaking to Louisa's friends that she made in Australia, everyone kind of glossed over that and said, oh yeah, Louisa just took it on her chin. She wasn't worried about it. It was just, okay, I'm a teenager now in Australia, let's enjoy life. Helen and her 2 daughters eventually settled in social housing in Reservoir. It was a little block of 5 units.
She opened up to me about the battles that she had to go through to get her daughters. You could see how proud she was as a mum and all the things that, you know, she wanted to have for her own daughters, the opportunities that she worked hard for.
Things were quite good for a period. They had their fair share of friends and schooling was on track too. It's only until later on, you know, that the few cracks started to appear. Mum then was forced to work 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet. And let's say that a little bit of, control was lost upon the girls. Louisa got involved in drugs as well.
Louisa didn't really want to follow, I guess, a structure or routine. Just full of life in these photos. And then, you know, she wanted to do everything and anything. We're here, there's no really rules or restrictions. I can wear whatever I want, I can do whatever I want. You know, I'm not a prisoner.
And then she met Joe.
Did you call last night?
Yeah, when you were there.
And he didn't pick up, huh?
Joe is not his legal name, and that is all we'll be referring to him by.
Hi everyone, how are you doing?
Why are you happy, Louis?
Well, today I found out the best news there. Lie! I'm like, alright, can you give me a call later? And he's like, yeah, I'll call you tonight.
Oh, yeah?
She was very struck with him. Joe was older than Louisa. She was a young girl, very impressionable. Her mother, Helen, felt that he wasn't supportive of Louisa and her education or finishing school or having her friends. He had to be with her all the time. He wanted to be her whole world.
Hi, how are you? Can I have 3 spanakoppites, 3 sausage rolls?
When I met Louisa, she was around 17 years of age. My training is I'm a clinical psychiatric forensic nurse. I work with homelessness, women escaping family violence. I used to talk on the Greek radio station about mental health and drug and alcohol. And Helen, her mum, then requested to speak to me privately. Helen was quite concerned about her behaviour and also about the partner that she was involved with.
But when I first met Louisa, she didn't deny that she was using substances, but she also made it quite clear to me that she's travelling okay, but her mum's a drama queen. I clearly said to Louisa that at the moment you might think that everything's okay, but constantly taking substances and you will use heavier drugs, there will be a huge impact in your life. And she obviously disagreed with me at that time, telling me that it's just pot.
Helen was trying to tell Louisa to, end this relationship. It's not going to go anywhere. But unfortunately, Louisa didn't listen.
All we wanted to do for the podcast was first and foremost to help Louisa's brother, but also just to try and make sense of how Louisa could have possibly drowned in that creek. The way the police brief read was that Louisa was going through a really difficult time, and it was her emotional state that led her to enter elevated creek levels, causing her to drown.
You could see how deep it is now.
Yeah. The way I was picturing it was this deep, wide body of water. So to my surprise, when I finally saw what Darebin Creek actually looked like, I just thought, how is anyone drowning in this creek?
So this is where she's meant to have met her end?
Yes.
Podcasting can be a very lonely experience. I worked with Claire before. She has a background in journalism, and when I said, do you want to jump on board, she was very quick to say yes.
We wanted to pull apart the information that the police were presenting as this is what happened, and to us the water levels was key.
The police brief made mention that they were able to obtain weather reports, and there had been heavy rain in the days leading up to Louisa entering the water.
Their levels were based on what? The rainfall figures from the Bureau of Meteorology. That was it. They didn't take it any further.
The police had taken visual cues and were able to see that there was rubbish on the trees higher up on the banks. And so that suggested that the creek had been experiencing elevated water levels at the time. But that never provided any information as to what the actual depth of the creek was at the time that Louisa entered. So that became the key part of our investigation.
We had no experience in regards to water depth, but it turns out that all that information was available through Melbourne Water directly.
You could see the depth from 6 kilometres upstream and 4 kilometres downstream, and what those levels were telling us was that the water was only 40 centimetres deep. 40 centimetres. Louisa is 170 centimetres.
We went into the middle with our pole and measured those depths.
No, Claire came down into the middle of the creek. She was right in there, so I just ran with it.
We have completely recreated what the creek level would have been during that period when she entered the water.
The deepest it got was about there, wasn't it? Is that,
Yeah, we taped it.
Yeah, and it was a good exercise to do, because really the only thing in there that I was stumbling on were the rocks. Now, I certainly didn't feel like it was going to go over my head anytime soon.
I mean, you're half out of the water. Why couldn't she have just stood up and walked out?
We couldn't work out how you would drown in that unless you were already unconscious.
Of all the options as to how Louisa died in the creek that day, I think the least likely option is suicide. I have never heard of someone ending their life in water that they could just stand up in. So the obvious answer would be that she was incapacitated in some form or unconscious. And we have to remember that there was no sign of a head injury or any significant injury.
So I think that just kind of spurred us on, really, didn't it? To just go, okay, what else do we need to look at?
One of the main topics that kept coming up from every person I spoke to that knew Louisa was how much of an impact her mother's death had on her. On New Year's Eve, Louisa's mother was out celebrating and Tass received a phone call to say that his mother had had an asthma attack.
They took her to hospital and placed her on life support. We had to turn off the machines and that was it for my beloved mother, Helen. For both girls, losing mum at such a young age, they never really recovered from it.
Helen was her anchor and she was gone. That's when things really started to go downhill.
Louisa was 22 years of age. She was trying to hold things together and she had dreams.
This is a bridal shop Louisa was working at, roughly for about a year. She loved dresses, she loved fashion. She had her struggles, but she came to work.
With Helen passing away, Joe became such a bigger part of Louisa's life. He moved into the house, he called the shots, a situation of what we know now as coercive control.
It feels like the police was sort of leaning into her state of mind.
Well, it just comes across that the police had wrote her off, that she was depressed. Louisa had a small group of friends, and it took a while for her friends to realise that Louisa was changing. She was a lot more guarded. She wasn't as willing to go out. And there were stories shared by Louisa's friends that they were witnessing physical violence between the two of them.
What was the coroner's final summation?
They agree that although there's considerable evidence to support that the relationship was volatile and at least episodically characterised by violence, she likely suffered from undiagnosed mental illness, and the evidence doesn't support a finding that her relationship caused or contributed to her death.
I would witness him being physical with her, whether it was slapping her, hitting her, grabbing her. He used to accuse her of being with other men as well, that she was just stupid and dumb and good for nothing. I did call the police. I called the police lots of times.
Police were showing up, police were separating them. The next day, the partner would return back to the house and the cycle would continue again.
February, another statement that she makes, although police have typed it out. Over the past 3 or 4 days, Joe has treated me so bad that I've been too scared to leave my flat.
When he's like this, I tend to just keep to myself and isolate myself and try not to get other people involved. I think I really need to stop seeing Joe.
The big one that's mentioned here is where she actually makes a written statement against him. He's slapped her, he's punched her, he tried to pull her out of the car by the hair. And then there's another one where he pours boiling water over her.
And these were things that Louisa raised with the police,
Correct.
that she was openly
Correct.
disclosing.
Yeah.
And we can see that closer to the time of her passing, these things were happening more regularly. They then ultimately laid a charge of assault against him. So they were well aware that the allegations of assault were increasing and their concern was clearly growing as well. There was never enough credit about the fact that her relationship was known to the family violence unit. And in fact, I think it was completely diminished in the report. And it was more focused on Louisa being depressed and unhappy. This would have been around 2010. I mean, it looks like she's lost a lot of weight.
You can see the grief, the bruises. I said, those bruises are not your shame to hide. They're Joe's shame. If someone gives you a black eye, why are you trying to cover up their shame? They should be held accountable for hurting you in the first place. You didn't put those bruises on yourself. So don't hide. And so she didn't. She actually walked around in her normal clothes and, well, Joe, you should be ashamed of yourself. You hurt me.
So this is Louisa's journal. It's not exactly what you would consider a journal. It's more kind of an old school notebook. But in amongst all of that, you can see her thoughts at different times of the year leading up to her final days.
Mum, I miss you. R.I.P. April 21st to 26th, worst time. Fought with Joe. He disappeared.
So you're kind of having to flick through the pages to understand what's going on and in what order it appears. But the way the police have worded it in the report, it sounds like her commentary is chronologically getting more and more depressed. In fact, her last dated message was actually a to-do list.
Saturday, 23rd of July, money transfer, ANZ. Pay rent, call Yaya, service the car, get a haircut.
And in one of Louisa's journal entries, she writes, "Fuck the world before it fucks you. Never give up." Now, by the time it reached the brief that got handed to the coroner, that had been reduced to "fuck the world before it fucks you," and the never give up was no longer part of that sentence. Which is a really important part of that sentence because it shows that even when life is incredibly hard, you just keep going. And that's really a sentiment to Louisa's whole life.
Reassuring myself that everything's going to be okay, tackling one thing at a time.
In the last few months of her life, it was dire straits. She had let Nurse Helen know that she was having financial difficulties. She had registered for the equivalent of a food bank. She was trying to become a personal attendant to work in an aged care facility. The problem was, in her earlier years, she had been arrested for an assault.
It was just something minor, but she was found guilty.
And unfortunately, they said that she wouldn't be able to continue with that career choice.
We met up together and she asked me for money, and I can see that this wasn't the right Louisa. She had lost a lot of weight. Louisa would never walk out of the house without being 100% perfect. Makeup, clothing, everything had to be spick and span. And this time, she looked very dishevelled.
Did you think she was suicidal?
No, I did not think under any circumstances Louisa was suicidal. Definitely not. Maybe depressed, yes. Embarrassed, humiliated, but under any circumstances, not suicidal. The spirit was still there.
Louisa's friends had all suggested that she had said that she was ready to leave the relationship.
She was planning to leave. Didn't say too much. I clearly said to her that I have great concerns. And her response was, "You've got to have faith in me, I know what I'm doing." I did not believe that. I tried to encourage her to come up to the Greek monastery with me in Geelong.
My aim was to get her there just for some time out and to think about what's going on and just to see things differently.
And she goes, "Great, okay." I organised it. But then, unfortunately, that never happened.
Sunday, October the 2nd, 2011, the last day Louisa was seen alive.
I'm hearing banging going up and down, and I heard the door slam, and then that was it.
He mentioned he'd actually seen Louisa's pink nightgown from a distance in the creek.
It was poor policing, an assumption made that it was just a drowning.
It took 5 lawyers to unpick the evidence. The
evidence for her having drowned is slight.